Donald Trump looking at whole range of North Korea military options, says former diplomat Tim Willasey-Wilsey, a former ambassador that worked with the Foreign and Commonwealth Office for over 27 years, has stated that, whether through diplomatic or military efforts, the U.S. will do everything to prevent despot leader Kim Jong-un from gaining nuclear capabilities. He said, "There are now 3 United States carrier strike forces operating in the Pacific for the first time since 2007. The USS Nimitz, USS Ronald Reagan and USS Theodore Roosevelt represent tangible evidence of American military power." General Joseph Dunford has described their presence as coincidental, but of one thing we can be sure, far from being a matter of chance, the deployment will have been carefully considered in Washington. In all likelihood, these ships are already equipped with the military capabilities required to support action against North Korea, in particular the cruise missiles carried by the escort vessels. For now, the focus is on diplomacy. That is why Donald Trump is touring Asia this week, rattling his saber during a visit to Japan, and soon set to visit Beijing too. In that context, the presence of the carriers is doubtless intended to reinforce the message to China that the United States cannot tolerate a nuclear-armed North Korea. The former diplomat believes that the key to dealing with the rogue nation without the use of military actions lies with persuading China to increase its stranglehold on the Hermit Kingdom through sanctions. He added, "All the signs are that China has, belatedly, got the message. China is now imposing serious sanctions against Pyongyang, and the effects are beginning to tell." There are long-standing connections between the Chinese Communist Party and the Korean Workers' Party, as well as between the People's Liberation Army and the Korean People's Army. Despite China's seeming compliance surrounding the rogue nation, Mr. Willasey-Wilsey believes the increased pressure on Kim Jong-un's isolationist state may be too little too late. He went on, "Yet there will be skepticism in both Beijing and Washington whether Chinese sanctions can deliver a compliant North Korea in an acceptable time frame. It will be difficult for China to bring the Kim regime to heel even with the United States willing to provide assurances, both to Pyongyang and Beijing, that Washington would recognize a non-nuclear North Korea, and that the U.S. has no territorial ambitions on the Korean peninsula. So the carrier strike forces have another purpose in case all of this fails. That purpose is, obviously, a military one." In anticipation of the failure of Chinese diplomatic and economic pressure, the Pentagon will have been looking at the whole range of military options. None of them is attractive, and all of them are risky. The former diplomat also explored the military options open to the U.S. if Pyongyang decides to launch another ballistic missile. He stated, "The launching of any more North Korean ballistic missiles poses a difficult problem for the Pentagon. To fall back on anti-ballistic missile technology, which is still unreliable, risks handing a major propaganda success to Pyongyang. If it fails, it could lead to a sudden loss of confidence in the value of the U.S.'s protective umbrella, particularly in Japan and South Korea. Much more reliable would be to use cruise missiles to destroy the ballistic missile on its launch pad." Mr. Willasey-Wilsey stated that a move of aggression by the U.S. could lead to World War III. He claimed the Kim dynasty could not tolerate the humiliation of failing to respond in kind, and the presumed retaliation would be an artillery barrage of Seoul. The U.S. response would be the destruction of the North Korean artillery pieces trained on Seoul, and the simultaneous targeting of all known nuclear and ballistic missile facilities. That is a war by anyone's measure. The analysis of a U.S. military response to North Korean nuclear aggression comes as Donald Trump tours Asia as part of his administration's diplomatic efforts to cool world tensions. The president recently scrapped a surprise visit to the Demilitarized Zone, DMZ, near the North Korea border. The U.S. president was minutes from landing in a helicopter near the heavily fortified area, but the plan had to be scrapped due to poor weather, according to the White House. The visit would have marked a historic step closer by Trump to Kim Jong-un, with whom the Republican has been engaged in an escalating war of words since he took office earlier this year.